Hi, I'm Artemis,
And I'm Hannah.
and welcome back to MakeShift podcast. So, today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about how to shift because we realized we never actually talked about that. We skipped right over that.
Mhm. Oops.
Yeah, oops. I don't think we're going to go into too much detail because I think one of the problems a lot of people have is having too much information and
Agreed. Let's start with this. How do you think you shift?
whatever just popped into your head, that's probably how it's going to work for you.
Yep,
Probably.
most likely. Somebody who's been at it for 2.5 years, it is exactly what I thought would happen the very first time I heard about shifting and thought about it. That is exactly how it's happened. So,
Yeah. And I think, and I was lucky enough to not be on 2020 Shift Talk where there was like tons of misinformation, but I did still pick up a lot of, it's not so much that I picked up misinformation so much as it is that even like 2022, 2023 Shift Talk, which is pretty good, I think, for information, there's still just a lot of information and a lot of it is conflicting with each other because different things work for different people. And if you're just trying to like look at all the information, it's kind of hard to sort out which ones to use and which ones not to use.
yeah.
Which is, it's not, there's no right answer for which to use and which not to use because it's different for everybody. You just kind of have to figure out what works for you. And the trick is figuring out what works for you. But sometimes if you've got too much information, it can be really hard to sort through, which is why we
Mhm.
said, how do you think you do it? And that's, even if it's not like exactly 100% the first thing you thought of, that's still probably the best place to start.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. That being said, and so we wanted to start with that because we are going to give you some information about things that helped us shift and things like give lots of ideas about different things you might try, but we did want to say that first so that the first thing you think of with how to shift is what you thought of yourself, and that's the first piece of information you have. That's the first thing you have in your brain.
Yep. I'm
Assuming
happy to
you're
talk
not
about what works for me.
assuming you've this is assuming you've never heard of shifting before, because there is probably also people watching who've already had all the information. There's probably people watching who were on 2020 Shift Talk. So
There are people right now screaming, "Why didn't you tell me this 3 years ago?"
yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, but for those of you lucky enough to be discovering this for the first time, lucky you.
Well, yeah.
uh, Whatever your first thought is, how you think you do it. That being said, people use all kinds of different things. Like, I think the idea is to get into, so there are different methods that people sometimes will use, and they have all kinds of names like the Alice in Wonderland method and the piano method, the falling method, or whatever, whatever, whatever. Some you don't have to use a method. Some people find them helpful, some people don't. Most methods, I think, are either some form of meditation, self-hypnosis, affirmations, stuff like that. I think the idea is to get into a deep meditative state or into a state between sleep and wakefulness, which I believe is called the hypnagogic state, the state
Yeah.
between sleep and wakefulness. I think though I think the key is getting into those states because those are the states where what's happening in the brain is what you want to be happening in order to
Mhm.
shift. So I know C talks about like an increase in theta waves, which is what happens
Yeah.
when, and I think also a decrease in alpha and beta waves, which is what happens when you dream, and it's what happens when people have otherworldly experience, out of body experiences, or what happens when people have hallucinations. That isn't to say shifting is any of those things, and it isn't to say that those things are the same as each other, but there are lots of different types of experiences where that's what happens in
That's
the brain. And we suspect, we don't know, that shifting is one of those states. So hence, trying to get into either a deep meditative state or a between wake and sleep state. Sometimes people can do it from lucid dreams. That's what I usually do, is try to shift from a lucid dream. Some people like to try to shift while sleeping. Some people like to try to shift from a state of wakefulness. Just like with lucid dreaming, some people try to do it from sleep to lucidity. Some people like to go from wake to lucidity, and you can do it either way. And what works best is different based on the person. So you can do it from a sleep, you can do it from awake, you can use methods, you can use affirmations, you can use subliminals, you can listen to music, you can like be up and doing things. Like I've tried to shift while dancing before. There's lots of different ways you can do it. Visualizing the place you want to shift to. And I think
I try to shift in the shower. It's my favorite.
some people shift in the shower because it's relaxing. And I think also too, it's different. I think for some people, getting relaxed is more helpful. And I think for other people, getting energized is more helpful. So again, I think it
100%.
depends on the person too, right?
The
And
whole part of shifting is that it is a personal journey, and what works for me will not necessarily work for you because you're a completely different person. So what works for Artemis is not going to work for me. What works for me is not going to work for you.
yeah, which isn't to say that you can't listen to things people say. Certainly, you can try out as many different things as you want.
I recommend trying out lots of different things. Personally,
Yeah.
as that's what ended up working for me, was just trying out a bunch of different things.
Trying
Just
lots
because
of
I was like,
things.
yeah, that sounds fun. Like the point of shifting is that it's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be exciting. Like I really feel like if you have that emotion behind it, that makes it easier. So if you're bored in your shifting method, change your method. Stop trying to shift it. Like stop trying to do whatever you're doing if you're feeling bored.
Or
Because it's not going to help
frustrated.
you. Or
I think, too,
frustrated.
if your method is boring or frustrating or unpleasant, that's probably a sign to try something different. If it feels like a chore, then probably try something different. And for me also, there are certain things that I think, like, I think certain music makes me feel closer to my DRs. However, I can't usually fall asleep when I'm listening to those songs because they're usually very like energizing. And I'm trying to shift from a state of sleeping because I'm trying to shift from lucid dreams most of the time, or just from like going to sleep and waking up there, which means that I have to actually be able to fall asleep in order to do that, which means that music that keeps me awake isn't what I want. So sometimes what I will do is I will listen to those songs throughout the day to feel connected to my DR. And then I will listen to other things to help me fall asleep. How do you know what works for you? Because that's a question that I have been asking a lot. And I feel like every time I ask it, or I like see people ask this to big shift talk creators, they won't actually answer it. They'll answer it by saying, you have to find what works for you. And I'm like, but how do you know what works for you? And so I think the answer that I have eventually come up with is, because the thing is that you don't always know if something is working for you based on whether or not you shift, because sometimes you're not seeing tangible results, like you're not in your DR, but that doesn't mean that the method isn't working for you, because sometimes you gotta like try it a few times. I feel like it's one of those things where it's not impossible for you to shift on like the first or second or third or whatever try. I'm not saying that like that's not
You
possible.
don't have to put work into it.
You don't have to. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to take you multiple tries, but
That's
it
what I meant to say.
can. It can. And so the fact that you try something and you don't shift immediately doesn't automatically mean that it doesn't work. So how do you tell? What I would say is, if it feels good, it's probably working. If you enjoy it, it's probably working. If it makes you feel connected to the reality you're trying to shift to, it's probably working. If it feels bad, if it feels uncomfortable, if it feels frustrating or boring, then it's probably not working for you.
100%.
So that's the conclusion that I've come to.
Yeah. No,
I've been talking for a long time. Hannah,
okay.
do you want to talk about some of the stuff that's worked for you?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about the things that have worked for me. So the thing about me is that what works for me once does not mean that's going to work every time. As somebody who has shifted 4 times now, once awake, 3 times asleep, I never did the same thing for any of my shifts.
That's
Two
like
of them were
such an ADHD thing.
I know. I'm a chaos switch. It's what I get, you know? But for me, what I have found is that I can shift while asleep, but my problem is identifying that I haven't just always been there and I'm not just there, just living my life, because that's what keeps happening is that I wake up and I'm like, yeah, this has been my life forever. And then I live it. And then I go to sleep and I come back and then I'm just like, oh, well, great, awesome, fantastic. I love that for me. But my 2 shifts while awake, on the other hand, felt like completely different, but they were also on well, one of them was on accident. So nothing has ever worked the same twice. But what I have found is that getting in a really relaxed state and a meditative state is what my brain needs in order for my body to be calm, because otherwise my body is what like keeping me here. I'm staying distracted with just feeling like I need to get up and do something or anything like that. So if I'm relaxed and in a deep meditative state, then shifting for me is a lot easier. But I also have to actually stay focused, which is my hardest problem at this point because I have the ADHD. So it's getting my brain, once my body is fully relaxed, to stay focused on the fact that we are shifting and we're not just floating off into oblivion, which is what happens when I go to sleep. At least that's what it feels like. To combat that, I do my counting, which I love. I've never gotten tired of counting. I'm one of those people who the Raven method will probably always be like the first part of whatever method I use, which is, if you don't know what the Raven method is, it's literally where you just count to 100, take deep breaths, count to 100, and then just start thinking about your DR, affirming and everything. I always forget the after 100, you do other stuff part. So then I fill it in with the 12 asleep method, which is basically where you just say 12 affirmations, with every third affirmation being, I am shifting once I fall asleep. I've changed it so that it's, I am waking up in my DR, or like when I open my eyes, I will be in this reality and I will designate the reality I'm trying to shift to. And then after that point, no, it's okay. After that point, if I haven't shifted yet, I go back to counting. And the whole point is just try to keep my brain awake while my body stays relaxed and asleep so that I can get to where I'm trying to go. And that's how I'm doing my like awake methods. Asleep methods, I usually do that, fall asleep and hope for the best.
And that's the other thing too, is you can just decide you're going to shift and go to sleep. Like it can literally
100%.
literally be that simple. People say things like, you know, oh, but are you actually trying? And I'm like, yeah, but you don't, like, what does trying even mean? You don't actually have to sit there and you don't have to do anything. For some people, you can just be like, well, I'm shifting, and then just go to sleep and wake up there.
I literally, my first 2 shifts, I wasn't even trying to shift that night. I just went to sleep and I woke up in another reality. So, because I always have the intention at night to go to sleep and wake up somewhere different in hopes that maybe I'll shift. It's worked twice.
And I think too, something to keep in mind is like that, and I think we're going to have a whole episode where we talk about shifting and neurodivergence as well, but definitely I think, yeah, but definitely I think even if there are things that are generally agreed upon by most shifters, still doesn't 100% mean that it's going to be true for you, because I think one of the biggest things I've heard from most shifters is that they shifted once they stopped obsessing over shifting, or once they stopped caring about shifting. Not caring as in like they didn't want to shift, but caring as in like they were like unattached to the outcome. And while I think that that is probably true for a lot of people, I think what was blocking me was believing that that was true. But I have autism and ADHD. I hyperfocus. I have special interests. And that's just like normal and healthy for how my brain works. And so for me, what would be obsessing for someone else is just having like a normal, healthy special interest. So I think that part of why I wasn't shifting was because I believed I couldn't shift, because I thought I was like, oh, well, I have to stop caring about it or I have to stop obsessing over it before I can shift. But no, I don't, because that's just how my brain works. And so
Yeah.
I can totally shift even if I'm hyper focusing. Now, I think it would be hard for me to shift if I was sitting there like, I need to be there. I need to be there so badly. I think because for me, I think desperation, right? That might block me because I have a history of just like, and I think this sort of is like with the law of attraction as well, too, which maybe we'll talk about that in another episode. But with the law of
Talk about that all
attraction
day.
being very much in the energy of wanting, especially desperation wanting, kind of pushes things further away. But that's not the same thing as hyperfocus.
Right.
And I was just like, I kind of like I want to shift, but I kind of have been unattached to the outcome for pretty much my entire journey. Like so that
Yeah.
like even though of course I want to shift, I'm not desperate about it. I'm just hyper focused on it. I
Yeah.
can't and it's just like and I'm not thinking about it like all day every day, but I can't go to sleep without thinking about it. I'm just like
Because
why wouldn't I try? Also, and we've talked about this before and I know you know what I'm about to say. I now can't fall asleep without doing shifting methods.
literally same. I think that's why I actually sleep so well away from home because I have nothing of comfort. And so all I have is shifting. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to do a method. And like, best case, we shift. Worst case, I get to fall asleep. Hell yeah. Let's go. And I always have mini shifts. Always. I think I've had a mini shift every time I've gone back home,
Yeah,
actually.
I also have like had lucid dreams or gotten very close to shifting the last two times I went back to my parents' house, which I think is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And like maybe I'll try to analyze that at another time.
Later. Yeah.
Yeah. But definitely something that I discovered recently that works for me is okay, well, something else I discovered recently is because I was trying affirmations because I'm really big into manifesting and the law of attraction. But I think that affirmations weren't really working for me because
Mm-hmm.
I'm an overthinker. And so even if I am consciously thinking I'm able to shift, I'm good at shifting, shifting is easy, whatever the affirmations are, subconsciously my brain is going, really? Even if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
consciously thinking that, even if I'm really positive. And the reason I know this is because when I had a lucid dream the other night and I got very close to shifting, where I was like, okay, I now feel myself in, or I was like, so what happened in this lucid dream was I followed a rainbow that was supposed to lead me to the reality I wanted to wake up in. And when I got to the end of the rainbow, I felt myself in a bed and I was like, okay, I'm in my reality now. And I could feel my brain going, but it's not going to work. If I open my eyes, I'm going to be back in my own bed.
No. So you have to work on that.
So, what that means is because even though consciously I believe that I can do it, if that's where what my brain is doing when I'm asleep, that means that subconsciously my brain is still going, no, I can't, no, I can't. So, I think what I need are and we were talking about this the other day too, about how different kinds of affirmations work better for different people. And I think for me, the affirmations that have worked best for me have been like really unique, unusual ones that I've
Yeah.
created myself. And I've started making videos on TikTok about these too, because they've worked so well for me. But the regular ones that people use, like I am a master shifter, shifting is easy, blah, 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 blah. I feel like those are the ones that don't usually work for me because I can't convince myself of them. But what
Yeah.
does work are saying things like, I am at peace with shifting. Shifting is self-care. That was a really big one for me a while back. And the most recent one that I've been using a lot, because again, my biggest block has been overthinking. And I was like, for a lot of people, they had to convince themselves shifting was real. For a lot of people, they had to convince themselves that they were capable of shifting. For me, I had to convince myself that I wasn't going to get in my own way. Because I was like, I believe shifting is real and I believe I'm capable of it. I just believe that I'm also going to always get in my own way. So that was what I had to overcome. So my most recent affirmation that I've been using, that just started using, that I think is going to be really helpful for me, is everything that I think is blocking me or preventing me from shifting is actually causing me to shift.
Yeah, it's so good.
So that's the one I'm currently using. The other thing that's worked really great for me recently has been, I am now convinced that I'm going to shift from a lucid dream, I think, because I think that's when I feel like I've gotten the closest. Although actually the first time I had like the only thing that I would consider like an actual like full shift where I really woke up somewhere else. It's really funny because I was convinced that not only that I wasn't going to shift, but that it wasn't possible for me to shift on that night because I was really sick and I had
Yeah.
taken Benadryl and I had heard, so I guess I did pick up some misinformation, but I had heard that generally when people take things like Benadryl or melatonin or things that knock you out, they don't shift because they just go straight to sleep. So I was like, whatever, I won't shift tonight. It's fine. I don't feel well. I'm going to take Benadryl so that I can fall asleep. And that's when I had the mini shift where I like woke up and felt sand. Now, I'm not saying that Benadryl is going to cause you to shift. Please do not go take Benadryl to help you shift.
No.
What I think, that's not why I think I shifted. I think I shifted because I was, I didn't feel
Whatever.
pressure. I didn't feel
Mhm.
pressure because I was like, well, I'm not going to shift anyway. So it it doesn't matter. I think it's the times when I've gotten closest have been, at least at the beginning, it was very unexpected. That's less so now, which is good because the goal is to be able to do it intentionally,
Yeah.
not accidentally. But recently, what's been working really well for me is being in a lucid dream and falling. I was getting really into the falling method, which is where you imagine yourself
Yeah.
falling off of a cliff and ending up in your DR. And I had the brilliant idea of like, so there's all these cool methods, right? But I feel like it's really hard for me to like believe that at the end of the method, I'm gonna wake up in my DR. But what if I did the method in a lucid dream? So that was what I was trying to
Oh.
do, right? And so that's what I was trying to do. And I was like, okay, so I really like the falling method because I really like the sensation of falling. I'm one of those weird people that enjoys the feeling of the bottom dropping out of your stomach. I love that feeling. Whatever. It is what it is. I love it. So I was like, I need to fall. I was in the dream and I was like, I'm gonna try to shift. Should I make a portal? And then I was like, no, I need to fall. And so I was like, okay, I'm falling. And then I was like, if you've ever seen Doctor Who, there's like the time vortex, which is where
Yeah.
the TARDIS hangs out, that's like exists outside of time and space. It's not the same thing as the void state, which is sort of like it's like a peaceful sort of, it's more like if you've seen the opening to Doctor Who, it's what the TARDIS is traveling through in the
Yeah.
opening. That's what I was traveling through
Oh
in
my
this lucid
gosh.
dream. I was like falling backwards through that.
So cool.
It was really cool. And so far, I have not been successful, but I felt the closest when I've done that. And I think what I'm gonna try next, I had this idea yesterday or this morning or something that I'm really excited about. And I'm just like, I think I have a way of getting around my brain going, am I really there though in the lucid
Yeah.
dream? And so I'm just like, so I'm gonna do what I normally do, which is fall backwards. And then I'm gonna slingshot myself forwards. And I'm gonna like imagine like a something like kaleidoscopy or mandala-esque that has like a center
Yeah.
point, and slingshot myself into that center point. And what's gonna happen is when I go through the center point, it's gonna be like that sensation of, I don't know if whiplash is the right word, but it's like when you're shot forward suddenly and you kind of like
Yeah,
rebound.
that's
And
whiplash.
that's
Yeah.
going to happen. And I'm going to be so disoriented that I'm not going to have time to question what's happening. Basically, essentially,
Yeah.
I'm going to shock myself into my VR. So I'm going to fall backwards, slingshot forwards, and then just boom. And I'm just going to like wake up in my bed. That's what's going to happen. That is how we're doing this. I will get back to y'all the next time I have a lucid dream and let you know how this worked for me. It's totally working. I'm very excited about it. The key actually, I'm not so much worried that it's not going to work so much as I'm worried that I'm not going to remember to do it because I feel like
Oh yeah.
even when I become lucid, I don't always remember
Yeah.
well what I had planned to do before going to sleep, but we're going to try
Hmm.
it.
I believe in you. I think if anybody could do it, it'd be you. So
I'm going to shock myself into my DR.
just shoot up, go bat out of hell. Uh, see, I really think my little Raven method with the 12 asleep method, and then remembering to actually think about my DR and scenarios. I just need that last bit. And I think that's my last little push that I need. So we're gonna try again tonight. We mini shifted last night. I was there for like a
Did.
whole like 2 seconds. Two
And we
seconds. I've
both
taken
lucid
it.
dreamt the night before.
We did. We both lucid dreamt the night before, and I shifted my waiting room a week ago, which we didn't really talk about, but that's okay because we don't need to. Nothing really exciting happened. I did get memories about that today, though, that we'll talk about later.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
memories of some stuff that happened in the shift.
Like
Thank
some of the
God.
stuff you scripted that you were trying to remember. What did I script?
No, no, stuff I was doing while I was scripting. I don't remember what I was scripting, but I remember what I was doing.
Your higher
So
self is like, you don't need to know what you scripted
they
because
specifically
you know
told
what
me,
I think it is? I think it's like if you know what it is, you're gonna second guess it and overthink it. Because you and I
and
are
that,
both overthinkers, right?
yeah. So I think we should talk about that though, because this is something that I think has changed the entire world for me was affirmations, where instead of doing affirmations,
Mm.
you ask yourself questions. It's like, why am I shifting tonight? Because I'm a master shifter. That is immediately my first thought now. Why are you shifting tonight? Because I'm a master shifter. Why
I
wouldn't I
love
shift
that.
tonight? I started this October 31st, and it's like what, the 13th of December now, because I
Yes.
know we're not releasing this until next year, but that's where we're at now. So hopefully by the time this is released, I've actually shifted. We've got story time to talk about.
Next year meaning the new year, not
Yeah,
meaning
new
a year
year.
from now.
Sorry,
I know
sorry. Yeah,
people use those terms both ways, and I just wanted to be clear on what we meant.
thank you. But using affirmations, so asking myself questions, and if my immediate answer, like I am really just going with whatever if my first answer is hippopotamus, I'm like, why is it hippopotamus? Like I'm very serious when I'm going first answer. We're
Love
really just
that.
taking it to basics here, okay? So I'm
I
being very
love
literal
that.
when I say first answer whenever I ask myself a question. It's like, well, why are you shifting tonight? Well, like if I like, just like I whatever the answer is, that's what I'm doing. And if it's not the answer that I want, I'm like, well, why do you think that? And then the next thing is some kind of insecurity that I'm like, well, that's dumb, that's not true. And then my brain's like, yeah, you're right. Weird. Okay, great. And then I'll ask the question again, and then we'll repeat the process. So that for me helped change the way that I look at affirmations a lot, because my brain was doing what yours does, where you say an affirmation, but then your brain is immediately following it up with a doubt, which is negating the affirmation, the manifestation you're trying to bring
Yeah.
about. So I felt like affirmations were really good because there's really no pressure behind them. And if the answer isn't the answer I want, then that gives me an opportunity to look deeper into it and see why that is, and then just kind of take it back until I can answer the question and my answer is what I want it to be. And that's just working on my shifting journey. And I just do that like randomly throughout the day. I'll just be like, wouldn't it be so cool to wake up in my DR tonight? I'm like, yeah, it would be really cool to wake up in my DR tonight, actually. And it's like, wouldn't it be so cool if you shifted tonight? Yeah, it would be so cool if I shifted tonight. Like I no longer have like any negativity around my shifting journey, which is weird. Weird.
That's awesome
As
though.
I know, as a chronic overthinker, self-doubter, like I gaslight myself hardcore to not believe my own experiences. Like the last like month and a half since October 31st when I started working on it to now, like I literally have no negativity. Every time I go into a shifting attempt, I genuinely believe I have the very real possibility of just waking up in my DR. Like I'm no longer worried about grounding myself. I'm no longer worried about like how to stay there. I'm literally just like, yeah, when I go in to do this, I could shift tonight. And it's a crazy weird feeling as somebody who's never had that kind of confidence before. And it started with affirmations. Genuinely just affirmations and being very real with myself and not lying, like just being like, yeah, there's nobody else here in the brain with me right now but me. So I have nothing to gain by lying to myself other than putting off my shift, like putting off the day that I actually shift to my DR. Like every day that I lie to myself is a day that I will not be waking up in my DR. It is stopping me from getting there. So I really feel like affirmations worked really well. And then treating things like manifestations, where it's like, yeah, if I manifest something in this reality, I'm going to be open to signs. I'm going to be open for the opportunities. I'm going to be like excited anytime I see anything like related to that, or that makes me feel that way, or makes me like excited about the thing that I'm wanting to manifest. And I've really, really taken shifting down to like my manifestation basics. And that's also helped a ton. Let me just talk about the fact that I did the 222 manifestation method on 12/11 and 12/12 and literally mini
So did
shifted.
I.
Literally shifted last night for 2 seconds. I'm calling it a mini shift, but it was a full shift. I was just like, I didn't open my eyes. So like, I'm going to keep calling it a mini shift, but like I was there for 2 entire seconds.
So you're telling me that we both started the 222 method on the 11th, and then we both had lucid dreams that night?
Yeah. And then the 12th, I mini shifted.
And then, and also on the 12th, you and I were manifesting each other shifting. That's another cool
right.
trick. Because I think it's also easier to overthink when you're like doing things for yourself, but easier when you're doing things for other people. I've noticed this when like manifesting or doing spells or things or reading tarot, that when I'm doing it for myself, I overthink everything. But when I'm doing things for other people, I'm really good at it. So if you have like a shifting buddy, which I think is a great idea, and we can get more into that later, especially when we talk about group shifting.
Yeah.
Having a shifting buddy, I think, is a great idea. And if you can like manifest each other shifting, or like work on each other shifting, I think that is also really helpful. One of the reasons why affirmations work so well is because I think even when you say affirmations, which do work, right? But I think also too, when you say affirmations, but there is like concrete physical evidence that what you're saying is not currently true, the brain's immediate response is that's not true. Yep. But if you're asking a question, your brain's automatic response is to try to answer it, to try to look for an answer. So if you say, I am a master shifter, then your brain is going to be like, or if you say like, I've shifted, because I like past tense affirmations.
Me too.
Because I think if you're talking about the future, then you're perpetually in the energy of it not happening yet. If you're talking about the present, then that's good too. But I think the past is even better, because in order for something to have happened in the past, you have to be in that future. I think that one's the most powerful. But if I'm saying I have shifted, my brain is going to be like, no, I haven't. What are you talking about? But if I'm saying, why did I shift? Now my brain is going to be like, well, wait, I have to answer this question now. So like, why did I shift? So I think for some people that works really well. I also think, and I was going to try this, doing like reverse psychology affirmation, because I think also for me, and I think this might be true for other people too, that my brain, and I think this is part of why it's so hard for me to be hypnotized. I think my brain, even if like I am just sitting here just like, no, I really want to be hypnotized because this sounds like a really cool experience that I want to have, some part of my brain wants to prove stuff wrong.
Yep.
My brain really likes being like, you're telling me this is going to work? Well, no, it's not. See? Yep. Some part of my subconscious, and like, we're not going to analyze that at all. We're not going to analyze where that stems from in my childhood. I don't know. I'll talk to my therapist, but my brain likes to do that. So I might try doing reverse affirmations, where I might be like, I might actually say I can't shift, because then maybe my brain will be like, well, what do you mean? Yes, you can.
I did that.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen.
That. I think I did that in February and March of 2023. So of this year, as we're filming last year, if you're watching. But I started doing those where I was like, I can't shift. And my brain was like, well, yes, you can. The whole point of shifting is that everybody can do it. So I did that for a while, and it worked really. Like, that's what pushed me to where I was. I think, honestly, us talking the amount that we do in our shifter group chat, and then my shift talk specifically in the way that I use my shift talk, is honestly what's push my journey so far, because I feel like until my shift in June, even though I'd had 2 shifts beforehand, I was still trying to prove to myself that it really was real. I was still in that mindset of I have to prove it's real. And it wasn't until like I had that shift in June where I was like, I literally have no explanation for everything that just happened. I was 100% in a completely other reality. Like, I think that's what like finally pushed me out of the getting the proof that it's real and getting to actually work on what I needed to do to actually shift. And luckily for me, I had already set up all of the other foundations and backbones to make sure that I didn't have to, there wasn't a whole lot more I needed to do other than just focus on keep moving forward. But I was stuck there for like almost 2 entire years. I think that's why I was seeing some progress, and I would see some mini shifts or some like memories come through. And I did have like 2 like accidental shifts, but they were really hazy because I wasn't grounded. And so I was always like, there's always possibility it could have just been a really weird lucid dream, like the most vivid, time consuming lucid dream I've ever dreamt, but it was in June that I was like, okay, it's real. It really is. You are in a different reality, regardless of how it happens. You're existing in another reality now, and you've proven that you can do it. So now I have to figure out how to get there and do it consistently.
Yeah.
And
I think that's
what
another thing too, right? Because I think people are so focused on the first time, but they don't think about how am I going to be able to do it consistently?
Yeah, and I'm setting myself up for the consistency part of it, because I don't want to just have my one shift and then not have another shift for like 8 months. I want to shift and then be able to shift just about every single time I can. So I'm setting up those foundations the way I had been the first 2 years of my shifting journey, when I was like, well, if it really is real, I want to make sure I've got things set up right. I want to make sure I'm set up for success, because like if it's not real, then I've lost nothing. It doesn't matter. But if it is real, then I'm gonna be ready for it. And I think that was like why I had I don't know. This is just my shifting journey. It's been very interesting, but it was like, I feel like June to October 31st was one big part. And then from October 31st to now, it is just figuring out how to shift and be able to do it every time I want to. So
Can
we're
I
gonna
also just
see.
say, can I also just say that like I fully believe it's real, but I also don't care if it's not,
Yeah.
because my insomnia is so much better now.
Yeah,
Like
I know.
like
Honestly.
among other things, right? Also like we're friends now, and there's like a lot of
Yeah.
other things in my life that are better because of my shifting journey. So it's just like I don't care if it isn't real. I don't care if it is and I never shift, because the things that I've gained from this just like are worth all of that.
About to say shifting changed my entire life. Ask anybody who knew me before I knew about shifting and knows me now. Like, there is such a complete difference in the way that I act, the way that I exist, the life that I have. Like, I literally manifested the entire life around me right now, and
Yeah,
it's wild.
because you're a master
Literally.
manifester.
I am a master manifester. I worked on that shit since 2017. I've earned that title, just like I'm a DR or a DR memory queen. And then the next one is gonna be shift every time I try.
Yeah. See,
We're
my
gonna
way of
be
getting around the like how do I do it consistently is that like once I get to my base reality, I have a room where I can script things in my CR, which we talked about this in a previous episode. Scripting your CR is basically manifesting. And I believe that it will be easier for me to manifest from another reality. Also, even if scripting your CR isn't manifesting, if every possible reality exists, if every reality you can think of exists somewhere, it must therefore follow that a reality exists from which it is possible to script your CR. So I just need to get to that reality. So regardless, I think it's possible. If it's manifesting, if it's not, I think it's possible. So in my base reality, I have a room where there's like little buttons, and little buttons will let me script things for this reality. And one of the buttons that I'm going to press is I shift every time I want to.
Yep.
And that's sort of I don't know if it feels kind of like cheating, but
no. Because there's going to be some times when you're going to go into a shift and you're not actually going to want to shift. You're just like, yeah, I want to shift, but you don't really want to. And so therefore you don't. And I think that's kind of the universe's workaround.
yeah, I
So
guess sometimes you think you want something, but you don't actually.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I really want to shift. And then you lay down and you're like, yeah, I'm tired as fuck. I want to go to sleep.
On my journey, because you were saying too before that like you had like phases of your journey, right? And I think for me, I was like really excited at the beginning, and then it took me what? Like 4 months before I had that first shift where I felt the sand. And then just like 7 to 8 months of nothing, like literally nothing. Occasional lucid dreams, but like up until that shift, my lucid dreams had been increasing in frequency. And then I got to a point where it was just like one or two a month. And then I went like 3 months without having one. And then after Halloween, suddenly they've been increasing again. And I had some like really wild, it's like, I don't know what happened or what changed, but I just like had like a really long stale period. So that's the other thing is like, if you've been trying for a while and it feels like nothing is happening, don't think that means that you've failed or that you're done, because
Definitely don't think
I went
that.
for a really long time with basically nothing happening, and then suddenly stuff started happening again out of nowhere. And can't even pinpoint, like I can't pinpoint it. I didn't start doing anything differently. I didn't have any mindset change. It just started randomly.
Weird. You're saying October 31st?
I
October
know, right?
31st, the same
We're so
day.
in sync. See, this is why I think having a shifting buddy is good, because
Wasn't that after I wrote our little manifestation? I don't have it in this notebook, or
was
I would
it?
actually, I think it might have been.
You are a master manifester.
I am, and I may have said the end of November, but I didn't believe it when I was writing it. I believed it'd be the end of the year. I was like, that seems more realistic to me, but I
I
didn't
do
write it.
remember you talking about that. Wouldn't it be so funny too, because we're because we're releasing the podcast on January 1st, if all goes well.
Oh
And
my
by
God,
that time, this season will be like fully over. Wouldn't it be hilarious if we got through filming the entire first season without like fully grounded, more like 24 or more hour shifts? And then we released the first season, and then we
season 2 ends up actually just being only shifting
all
story times.
stories. Yeah.
Only shifting story
Just
times,
shifting.
nothing else. Just this. I shifted again last night.
We've
It
got
was
our
so
matching
weird.
pillows.
God.
We're
But
like, we really are like twins in a lot of ways. It's really funny.
it's this is, guys, seriously, if you are alone on your shifting journey, please reach out and make friends with somebody. If you need a friend, hi, I'm Haha Shifts on TikTok. I will literally respond to your DMs. Like, please feel free to message me. I will get to you when I have the energy to respond to people's messages. But like, I cannot stress to you how vital having shifting friends was. Literally my entire shifting journey from January 6th until I think it was like June 6th, actually, ironically enough, was all about me finding shifting friends, openly talking about my shifting journey, being comfortable talking about my shifting journey, and being comfortable claiming my own experiences. That is literally that entire portion of my shifting journey from January 6th to June 6th. It was just about having shifting friends. And then having those shifting friends from June 6th up to October 31st is what helped me claim my actual power and believe I really could do the things I thought I could. I just was always convinced I couldn't. And now from October 31st, which is now, until who knows when, and we've already had one shift to a waiting room. I had scripted it as a joke that day to gaslight myself into believing I really could shift. And then I shifted to that waiting room that day and did nothing but script for this reality for 6 straight hours. I was literally just sitting at my office desk, just like this the whole time. The memory I got is literally me sitting there like scripting. So I'm like, I literally spend so much time in this reality. It has to be better. I have to do as much as I can for this one because this is the one I spend the most time in, and I need to make it easier for me to go where I want. And so I literally just sat there, and the memories I got actually were just of me doing this and my hair constantly getting stuck underneath my arm because my hair in that reality was much longer. Like like longer. And it kept getting stuck under my thing, and I kept pulling my head back, and I was like, God, this is so annoying. I'm so glad her hair is shorter there. Ugh. Like, just
As somebody with hair that long, actually longer than that, the struggle is real.
it fell in my coffee for the first time today. My hair's at that point now where it fell in my coffee mug, and I didn't notice until I was already at my desk. And then I was like, why is my shirt wet? And I looked down and I was like, why is there coffee all over me? And I was like, no.
The worst is when you work with kids
Oh, it'd
because
all be up all the time.
then it gets sticky because they'll like dip it in mud and stuff.
Oh, God, no.
They don't mean any harm. They're just
But kids are, I love other people's children. But if my own kid did that to me, I'd be mad. This is why I have fur babies. Because I love other people's kids. I can tolerate them all day long because I think it's hilarious when kids do stupid things, as long as I get to go home at the end of the night to quiet.
You're just like my dance teacher, Steph. She's like, she once said, she was like, I love being a teacher because I get to hang out with all your cool kids and I
Yeah,
get to give them back at the end of the day.
absolutely, absolutely. I do genuinely really love kids. I've been in kids' lives like my whole life, but I think that's part of the reason why I was like, as an adult, I'm choosing to not procreate because I like being able to go to sleep whenever I feel like it and wake up whenever I feel like it.
I'm really excited to have kids in a different reality.
That's so true. Oh, that's going to be like a late season 2, beginning season 3 podcast episode, I think, is talking about that.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure I do in some of them. I okay, I have to show you the little oh my gosh, what's that app that lets you do like face swaps and face edits
Oh,
and stuff
yeah.
maybe have? I have to show you the one I did of like what Regina and my kid would look like because it's so cute.
Please send it to me. I want to see it.
I'm
I
gonna
might,
send
I
you.
might do it just for funsies. I won't, I don't have kids in that reality because I have my hysterectomy. All the DRs that I've scripted except for Bridgerton and I guess Avatar and Pirates of the Caribbean, but that one's not scripted. I have hysterectomies in every reality that takes place in modern days.
I scripted in all of my realities that I don't get a period, but I can still get pregnant if I want to.
See, I think for Bridgerton, sorry, I know I literally said this is going to be a whole episode, and I really think it should be because I really think we need an entire episode dedicated to just making your life as a female better in other realities. And I think that that could just be its own episode. But my little
Yes,
insert
number
here,
one, script out your period.
my number one insert here is script out your period for Bridgerton. My workaround for this was literally just to be like every time of the month you wake up and there's just a teeny tiny little blood spot, just one teeny tiny little blood spot. It does not actually, it's not gross. It's just one tiny little one, and then your maids clean it up, and that's how you know you're not pregnant. And then it just happens once a month, and that's it. Just tiny little blood, just one drop, and you wake up. You wake up because it
Just can you
happened at night.
imagine having a period in the
No,
Regency era?
no,
They didn't have tampons
no.
or pads. They
Women.
used cloth.
I know, and they just like we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about that. Let me just tell you now. If you want to shift to
Absolutely not.
historical
Periods.
realms,
Script in like modern conveniences.
or scripted movie rules, I think
Oh, that's a
literally
good
just
one.
I think a hack for everybody's script is if you don't want to have like body hair, you don't want to worry about going to the bathroom, you don't want to
That's
worry
a
about
big
all
one
these,
for me. I
all if you don't
script
want to
out
worry
going to
about
the bathroom in all of my realities because it's like such a I can deal with all matter of pain, but I can't deal with being uncomfortable and like having to pee is the worst for me.
yeah.
It's
So like
so distracting.
no, I love it though because like I feel like I get really hung up on certain things sometimes, and then like ultimately I think my subconscious always just goes to like, oh, this is movie rules. So like if you don't want to have to worry about paying bills, guess what? Your bills are just paid. Like you, it's just one of those things you don't have to worry about. How did Neil keep a lease on his New York City apartment for like 5 years when he wasn't even alive?
How did the Gilmore Girls pay for takeout every single fucking night when they were supposedly poor?
Exactly.
Movie rules.
How did friends live in those big old apartments when they're all poor?
Movie
See?
rules. That's
Exactly.
why.
Movie rules. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it.
And movie rules can
Workarounds.
mean like that can mean whatever that means to you. So if it means like you
Yeah,
don't if it
100%.
like if you don't see it, then it doesn't exist. So like you never see people use the bathroom, that means it doesn't exist, right? Stuff like that.
Hmm.
And you
It
can
just
do that for
is.
all kinds of things too, because like we have a couple of video games that we're planning to shift to, and I'm like really excited for video game rules to exist.
Same. Oh my God.
Definitely, because I just like I know a lot of people shift to or want to shift to Stardew Valley, and I'm not shifting exactly to there. I have this other game I like called World's Dawn, which is this it's along the same lines as Stardew Valley in that it's a farming sim, although I actually wouldn't call it a farming sim because farming isn't the main focus, which is why a lot of people didn't like it or prefer Stardew. But for me, Stardew was actually really overwhelming because there was just too much. There was too much going on, too many characters, too many storylines, too many different things to do. And I'm like, I'm overwhelmed because I want to experience everything in the game and there's too much. And there's also like time is passing. And so I feel very
Yeah.
stressed. But World's Dawn is there's much less to do, but the characters I actually think are cuter and more interesting. Like I enjoy the conversations more. So for me, it's less about farming and more about like living in a cute town with cute people. And there just happens to be you happen to have a farm, right?
Yeah.
So that's one that I'm planning to shift to, but and people talk too about like if you're shifting somewhere that's like animated or pixelated or whatever, you can shift there and have it look that way. You can also shift there and have it look completely real. So I want to shift there and have it look real, but I still want game rules to apply. So if I do
Yeah.
decide to garden, I'm not actually getting dirt on my hands. I'm just like
Just
taking a shovel and it'll have like a boop sound and then I'll have
yeah.
planted the thing. Like I'm so excited to experience that, but have it look like real. And I just
Yeah.
think that's going to be really weird, but I'm super excited to experience it.
I'll say Ryan Reynolds actually just had a movie like a year or two ago come out where it's like Free Guy, I think, or something like that. I don't know. But he's a video game character and his world is a video game and things kind of work that way. I thought that was a really cool take on basically the spoof that they were doing, which the video game I think they were spoofing was like GTA. So
I actually don't know what that is.
Grand Theft Auto.
Oh,
It's
thank you. It's
yeah,
not
you're
okay, so it's not
welcome.
that I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. It's that
No,
I'm
no,
bad
it's
with
sorry, the
abbreviations.
acronym. Yes,
I'm
yes,
bad
it's
at acronyms. That's the word. I'm bad at
yes,
acronyms
yes,
historically.
Grand Theft Auto.
Which is really
As
funny because, sorry, I know I interrupted you, because generally I'm really bad at acronyms, but someone I saw, I don't know if it was like a TikTok video or a meme or something, but someone was like, if you can figure out what this says, you're a true Harry Potter fan. And it was just a whole bunch of letters. And as someone who is historically bad at acronyms and I can't figure out what things mean, I took one look at this and was like, Ronald Weasley, how dare you steal that car? Absolutely disgusted. And just like the whole thing, which was like the longest one ever. And I'm like, okay, so I'm bad at acronyms, but this one is obvious to me.
yeah, data acronyms unless it's Harry Potter related, and then all bets are off.
Oh no, wait, it wasn't that one. That was no, that was another one. It was no, this was even worse because it was something that like it wasn't a comment like a quote or something that I would know. It was but it was like really long and it was something I don't remember it exactly, but it was something along the lines of like I'm in love with you, but I don't want to tell you because I'm afraid that you don't like me back or something. But it was really, really long. And I got
Yeah,
every single word instantly just by looking at it. And I was like, so as someone who's bad at acronyms, clearly this says something about my mindset and the way
yeah.
that I think that I got this instantly anyway. That was such a tangent.
It was. We went on lots of tangents in this
We
second half of this
did it.
recording, but I have a way. I did earlier have a way to tie this back into our whole original concept, which was the fact that we were joking about how funny it would be if we post, like by the time we post season one, that's when we finally shift. and the fact that I was going to bring up one of the best methods that I think is super underrated that people, especially who are overthinkers, should start applying to their shifting journey is this method called the kink method. And the kink method is where you joke about something until your brain just finally believes it. And it's just like, it's just a thing now. So I like to joke all the time about, wouldn't it be so funny if I just shifted tonight, or I shifted on accident? Like, how funny would it be if I blinked and then I opened my eyes and I was actually in my DR? Like, how hilarious would that be actually? And I just start throwing that out there now. And I started doing that, I think, before October 31st, but it has been a consistent part of dialogue between us every day since then.
It's really funny. It's totally
So,
funny. Another version of this is, because I think, again, it also depends on your particular brain. So another version of it that I will sometimes use is what I call like the sarcasm version,
sarcasm, yeah.
Where instead of being like, wouldn't it be so funny? I'm like, yeah, but is it actually though? Like, yeah, because that's totally gonna work.
I honestly think applying humor, like if you're an overthinker, like applying humor to your like affirmations and stuff throughout the day genuinely helps, because your brain automatically like kind of tunes into that a little bit more than it does like other things. Because if you're just sitting there like, I will shift, I am a master shifter, your brain's going, no, you won't, no, you're not, just being super negative about it. But if you like apply humor to it, be like, wouldn't it be funny if I ended up being a master shifter? Like, what if I just like found out about shifting and then like after my fourth try, I just start shifting all the time? Like, wouldn't that be so funny, actually? Just it kind of just makes your brain go like, actually, yeah, that would be hilarious. For reals though. And then as somebody who likes to prove people wrong, including myself, and is a people pleaser, having other people excited for me to shift, or having somebody who will shift because I shift, actually makes me more motivated to shift. So it makes me more motivated to keep those positive mindsets and be like, yeah, like I have to be a master manifester because, or a master shifter, because Artemis has to shift. I need to shift so Artemis can shift. Like, if I'm going to shift, Artemis is going to shift. So that means I have to shift soon. So
I love that that's motivating for you.
Yeah, it really is.
And positive mindset is something that works really well for some people, but
I think positive mindset as
for everyone.
No, it is.
Yeah.
What positive mindset means for you.
Yes.
Not
and
necessarily
that
positive mindset
being all the time or never having any doubts. Because like the key with doubts is not to not have them. It's to acknowledge them and accept them so you can integrate and move on, which is different than denying them, because you have to think, no, but I have to be positive or I won't
and that's
what I want to attract. It's just like, well, no, you have to, the key is to not get stuck in them, not to not have them at all. I think that's a
100%. I completely agree. As somebody who's like seems to be like a really positive person on Shift Talk, I'm actually a super negative person, like self-talk person. So the positivity is something that I have developed to try and like combat the fact that I am a deeply negative, dark human being.
It's so funny. We're exact opposites again, because I'm someone that like complains constantly, but I'm actually like a really positive, optimistic person.
No. I've always been like a realist with an optimistic perspective on realism. Like, I'm always going to be real about it, but I always find the optimistic way of like.
I've heard that called cynical optimism. Like, you're a cynical optimist. Another trick with humor is like, if you're doing affirmations and your brain is automatically going, that's not true. Something else I've heard that helps with that is, if you feel your brain doing that, think of something funny.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do, this is my go-to one. In Steven Universe, there's a moment where Peridot is like trying on shorts that have little alien heads on them, and the alien heads look a lot like her face. And so like she tries on the shorts and she goes, ooh, and it's just the funniest thing ever. It's my favorite moment in all of Steven Universe. So like every time, I actually have like, there's a video I go to for when I'm feeling anxious that's just like compilation of Peridot laughing because she has the funniest laugh. So that's something that's like my go-to, is just like parrot laughing.
I love it. Honestly, I think more people should apply sarcasm and humor if that's something that like genuinely works for you. If like being like fake positivity, like if your affirmations are always followed by negativity, ask affirmations and joking about, because your brain's going to be like, yeah, eventually you're going to just start believing the jokes that you're saying. And for me, that helped a lot to kind of combat any like self-doubt and negative thoughts when I ran into them, because like I said, I come off really positive, but inside my brain is really mean to me. The positivity is because my brain is mean and I don't want people to ever have to experience the way my brain treats me. Nobody should have to deal with that. Like I don't ever want anybody else's brain to do that to them. So I want to be as positive as possible, because you speak into existence what you want. So do not feel like I literally sit here constantly all the time, be like, maybe I should just give up on shifting. Maybe I can't shift. Maybe I've lied about everything. I literally will go down this horrible self-doubt rabbit hole. And my combat for that was the kink method, where I was like, but wouldn't it be funny if I was a master shifter? Like, wouldn't it be funny after all this time, I really did get to the point where I shift awake every time I try? Like, wouldn't it be funny? And then I've just kind of expanded. I can't think of like exact questions or things at this like exact moment, but my favorite thing now is basically like, can you shift tonight? I'm like, yeah, of course I can shift tonight. I'm a master shifter. Why not? I could shift any night. Why not tonight? And that's kind of just my thought process now. So highly recommend the kink method for people who are very negative and self-doubting, because you can use that to your advantage. Use what you have to your advantage. If you feel like you have a weakness, you can make it strength. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. So humor, sarcasm, asking questions rather than making statements, past tense rather than present tense.
Oh, big on the past tense.
Yeah, big on the past tense, and reverse psychology. Those are like all different tricks that you can use for affirmations. And then some people don't need those at all. Some people just like regular affirmations are fine. So like if you want to try affirmations, and you don't have to use affirmations
Not
anyway.
at
I realize
all.
this whole video has kind of become more about like manifestations and affirmations, but that's fine. But
Yeah.
if you want to try, if you think affirmations would work for you, or you want to try it, these are like all different ways. And like some of these might work really well for you, some of them might not. Maybe all of them work really well for you, maybe none of them do. So if you want to try, just like try out and see
Yeah.
what you like, or
Like
don't.
I would say technically all you actually need to shift is the intention.
Yeah. And what that means is
You
that
want to go.
you want to do it. I'm gonna do it. That's like when people are just like, how do I intend to shift? Well, how do you intend to like wake up in the morning and eat breakfast?
You just know you will.
You're just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Yep.
It's not
So
anything special. You don't have to do anything special to have intention.
not at
Intention is
all.
basically just the plan for it to happen.
And all the things that we said were just the ways that we have found in our shifting journey to combat any negativity throughout the day, any thought processes, ways to affirm to ourselves
Things
and
that
get
have worked for
ourselves,
us.
yeah, and get ourselves to believe that we have the power to do this. If you don't need that, you don't need that.
And some people don't need intention at all, because some people shift accidentally all the time.
I will say I shifted when I didn't even know about shifting. Like I shifted back in 2014.
So in conclusion, we can't really give you any concrete how to shift.
Just tell you what worked for me.
What worked for us, some different things that people might try in order to shift, but ultimately everyone's journey is different, and how you think you shift is probably the best place to start.
Yep. And if you don't like the answer that first comes to your brain, guess what? You can change it.
That's true.
That just means it's part of your journey. I think that's why it's called a shifting journey.
And some people's journeys are a lot shorter than others. Some people's journeys are a lot longer than others, and none of that is better or worse.
I mean, you can see experienced shift talkers go months and months and months without shifting, even though they've spent months or years in other realities before. And it's because you're always going on a journey, and that's just how things work.
Yeah, and shifting sooner doesn't mean that you're better at it either, too. Like, just like people learn different ways and different speeds, and some people need lots and lots of practice before getting something, and some people do it best like on the first try. Like, it's really just, and then some people get in their own way, like
Mhm.
me. Some people have too much information and need to like pull it back. Some people have not enough information and need more. It's like, there's no right or wrong way to shift, and there's no right or wrong way to have a shifting journey. And
Mhm.
no one's journey is better or worse because they shifted faster or they had an easier time shifting, or like it's just everyone's on a journey. And some people just like they're not ready for it yet too.
Mhm.
That's another thing. As I think sometimes, and I think this is especially true because sometimes we don't think about how real it actually is, and we don't, we might have intentions for shifting that are things we think we want to experience but maybe aren't actually what we want to experience.
Yep.
And some people are just like, I need to realize that before I can shift. And then for you, it was like, I need to focus on healing
Yep.
to shift. Like I'm shifting for healing rather than shifting for a person.
Yep.
And then
Which
for
is what I
some,
was doing beforehand.
yeah, which doesn't mean that you can't do that. I think for me, I
No.
actually had to have like the opposite, where like
Yep.
I was like, I can't shift for a person. I can't shift for a person. And I had, which I mean, to be fair, it's not like I don't have a lot of fictional crushes anyway, so that like that wasn't really part of my journey. But
Yeah.
I had to give myself permission to be like, it's okay if like I do want to focus on a person.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. And maybe I should try that because I think sometimes it's easier for me to imagine people than it is for me to imagine places, if that
Mhm.
makes sense, which is funny because I think I remember places really well. Like all of my memory, I have memories from when I was really young. Like I can remember being like 2 years old, and most of those
Mhm.
memories are of places. So I have a really good memory for places, but I have a hard time imagining places that I haven't been before.
Yeah, I also should feel like I should mention the fact that like I have aphantasia, so like any kinds of ways
Mm,
of shifting regarding visualization, I don't even look at those. I don't think about them. They don't exist for me because when I have nothing there.
yeah.
I can still like you can visualize without seeing pictures in your head. Like you can still do that, but like for me, like I don't talk about that stuff. So there, like if you are somebody who can visualize really, really well, highly recommend you do research on visualization type methods and things in regards to shifting, because that will probably be really helpful for you. But that's not for me, which is why I did not mention any of that in this,
And
because I have no experience on that.
and there are also other senses you can focus on. Like if you feel like using senses is going to help you shift, but you can't visualize or you have trouble visualizing, you can focus on sounds or smells. Smell is like a big one for me. Although I have a hard time imagining smells, but I smell is like a really strong sense for me. But imagine you can
Licking.
visualize sounds or touch just as much. Oh yeah, licking. There's someone in our group chat who was able to shift for the first time by imagining licking things, which I
Yep.
think is like, and
It is a
I haven't shifted doing that, but it does help me visualize things because for whatever reason, it's like your tongue knows what texture everything is, even if you've never licked it before, which is the weirdest thing. Being just like, every single thing I'm picturing, I know exactly what this thing feels like on my tongue, even if I've never touched it before in my life,
yep.
which is very strange.
Very,
But if you're
but
going
it
for
works.
texture, but if you're going for texture for us and for this person in our group chat who came up with this, so credit to them. We didn't come up with this. Licking works like
Very,
imagining licking works really well for like textures.
very great visualization tool if you are somebody who feels like they cannot visualize. Licking is your answer. If you think I cannot visualize, licking is your answer. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now. I don't care if it's wrong. I'm saying it anyway. With all of the confidence.
Music is also great for some people, I think. Some people,
Yeah,
especially if you're like a musical person.
I feel like I actually would be able to shift really easy in an awake method if I was listening to music about my DR with headphones and I was just left alone for like 2 hours to just like listen to a playlist and I was specifically like just thinking about what the songs remind me of that DR and then shifting. I really think that that would be useful for me. I just won't do it. There's nothing else to follow that. I just won't do it. There's no reason why. I don't know why. I just won't do it. But
Well, 2
I
hours
really
is a
think,
long time to sit alone doing nothing but listening to music.
well, I guess I should also point out this is another good time to throw in that shifting does not have to take a long time. Shifting, in fact, probably shouldn't take you a long time. If you're laying there for like 2 hours trying to shift, girl, get the. I'm
Although
using that gender neutral.
some people,
But
some people like do like that's fine if that's what works for you too.
yeah, but I'm just saying,
It
like,
just
it
doesn't
does
have
not,
to.
yeah, shifting does not have to take a long time. Ben on TikTok is very big about the five break five method, where you do something for 5 minutes, and if you don't shift, get up and do something else. Don't set a timer. Literally, the whole point of 5 minutes is whatever. You're just doing it until you feel like too much time has passed and you're gonna get up and move on.
I
And
think that's especially good for people who get bored really easily.
I love the five break five method. Honestly, I feel like anytime I start getting really down in my journey, I will automatically default now to the five break five method, where all throughout like one day, I'll just sit there and like try to shift a couple of different times. Like I'll literally be sitting in my desk chair and I'm like, yeah, why not? And I'll close my eyes and start counting and doing some deep breaths and just see what, like, and thinking about my DR to see what happens. And then that night, if I decide to try and shift, it always like feels like I did a good job. Like I can't say that like I always have an experience or anything like that, but I feel like it always reinvigorates me. And it also kind of feels like setting intentions. So that night, if I don't feel like trying to shift, I can be like, yeah, I did all those five break five methods. I intended to shift. So when I go to sleep now, there's like a 50-50 shot I can wake up in my DR. Great.
So I think that's basically all we have to say about how to shift. In conclusion, it's your journey and
Yeah.
you'll figure it out. We believe in
Yeah.
you. We believe in you.
Do what feels good.
Do what feels good. Yeah. So thank you for listening to episode 5 of our podcast. I'm Artemis.
I'm haha shifts.
And we will see you next time.